to David initially. During the time that Jonathan aligned to David, it was not a good look. It will cost Jonathan a certain level of trust between he and his father. David, in all that he was able to do, once he was granted authority and crowned king of Israel and of Judah, he pays it forward. He begins to settle his debts. Not in the fashion that most people would expect. He doesn't look to create division in the house. When he can, he's king. He can do whatever he wants. And the world is watching. All of the spirits in the invisible, all of the kings of various nations that know of David's story, all of the house, the children of both sides of the house, everybody's looking. And they want to see what the king does with his power. How do you wield your power when you can? David had absolute power. You've got to understand this. Being crowned king, whatever David decided was law. Even though he had to answer to God. We see that there was a king prior to David that had to answer to God too, and did whatever he wanted to do within his own house. So you can imagine what he was doing amongst the Gentile nations. Saul created division in his own community of people, even though he had to answer to God. So you could imagine what his behavior patterns were amongst those he had free reign over, those that did not align to the God of his house. It's intriguing, and I know that the King David thought of this also, how God would allow all those that belong to this house, both king and normal citizen, the ability to pay kindness with kindness amongst the house, and not wickedness with wickedness. That's the clause. Everybody's bound to it. David would repay kindness with kindness. He could lavish as much kindness in his payback as he wanted to. He could bless whoever he wanted to with whatever he wanted to bless them with. He has absolute power. But he could not fall down to any man or woman's level and roll in the hay with them in repaying wickedness with wickedness. Not in his house. What we see here in Scripture is David looking out for people that looked out for him. He's gotten to a place of success where he has passed the various tests of his life. Not all of them, because his tests will be ongoing like all of us. They don't stop. But he's gotten into a rhythm with them. He's reached a plateau where he is somewhat rewarded. He's benefited from all of his past activities. And he has resources. He's king. And he thinks back to the man that caused so much turmoil in his life, to his family line. He thinks back to Saul. The scripture says, and David said, is there yet any that is left of the house of Saul? Not of the house of Jonathan. Saul. That I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake. Saul was wicked to David. Many would think David would be bitter and angry and resentful to all things pertaining to Saul. You would think that David wouldn't even want you to bring up Saul's name. David would, if he was petty, immature, you would think with the power that David was given, he would have made it a mandate across the whole nation of the Israelites, both Judah and Israel. No one ever speak the name Saul. You would have thought he would have did things like that to exert a false level of power, to flex. Because that's what petty, immature, childish people do. They always look to flex. But it's really not a flex. It's an uncovering of a weakness. It's a sign of immaturity and weakness. A sign that you really don't stand in the fullness of the blessing that God has bestowed upon you by way of this role. Look at how you wield your power. You spend all your day swatting gnats, sending armies to fight against gnats, bringing humiliation upon the entire collective because they have chosen you as the leader. David was chosen. The people chose David. He was selected by the people. But first he was chosen by God. And him being chosen by God led him on a monumental journey of being proven. And it will be this proving stage in front of everybody that will get the buy-in from the people. And in that, in them seeing all of his activities and hearing about it, they by default would choose him. David thinks of Saul in a loving manner. He sees his tormentor for what he was, a teacher. He was a teacher. Saul led David on a monumental journey inadvertently. Let's not get it twisted. Saul did not do this intentionally. He didn't do it with loving thoughts. He did not. He did it with wickedness because of his own level of inadequacy and insecurity, of which he would be tested. And in his test and interacting with David, he would fail. And he'd be moved out of the picture. Yet David would see Saul inadvertently as a way of making him better. Not consciously, subconsciously. All the evil that Saul inflicted upon David, David alchemized transformed it, made it useful material, combustive material that allowed him to rise, to grow. He would use what was designed as evil to propel him to heights that he never could ascend to without the threat, the real threat, that Saul's activities created. And now that he's reached a space, he's looking back. And he sees nothing but love. He feels bad for Saul. He pities Saul. He mourns the fact that Saul could never get it together, that he could never see the light at the end of the tunnel. He mourns the fact that God had to remove him. He mourns the fact that all these things had to transpire. But then he also celebrates what he gained from all of those experiences. And he says, look at me. Look at how I have been forged.